Talking of hope and action, President Cyril Ramaphosa announced a national state of disaster over rolling blackouts with an electricity minister also on the cards. This was unfolded after an unprecedented call for armed security forces to come into the house. The entrance of armed security forces into the house yesterday when President Cyril Ramaphosa was initially prevented from giving his State of the Nation address was the climax of the EFF's point of order disruptions. The one in which National Assembly Speaker Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula said she saw a threat and therefore called in the armed security forces, and the one that the DA leader John Steenhuisen raised an issue with of armed police entering the House before being called in line with the powers, privileges and immunities of Parliament and Provincial Legislatures Act. The security forces entered before you invited them. It is an important point for you to protect this House. It is important to prevent the intimidation of members of Parliament by the security services of the executive. We will not let this go, Steenhuisen said in a point of privilege. Not everyone in the opposition agreed, governing ANC members of Parliament heckled. But then, some 45 minutes late, it was finally the turn of President Cyril Ramaphosa to deliver the State of the Nation address aimed at showing his administration at work. National state of disaster, announcing a national state of disaster on electricity and energy, Ramaphosa argued. In a time of crisis, we need a single point of command and a single line of march. Just as we address the cause of crisis, we also need to address its impact. Central to this was reducing the severity of power rationing with a view to ending it, as his administration acknowledged the widespread damaging impact of rolling power outages that have hit South Africa every day in 2023 and for more than 200 days in 2022. Also crucial to addressing the crisis, he said, was an electricity minister who would work day and night to resolve the electricity crisis. The minister will focus full-time and work with the Eskom board and management on ending load shedding and ensure that the Energy Action Plan is implemented without delay. No names were mentioned, but Ramaphosa emphasized the Public Enterprises Minister would stay put, overseeing the power utility Eskom's unbundling, the just energy transition, and generally be the pivot between the state-owned entity, its board, and the government. According to the president, a national state of disaster, this was a decision of the ANC's National Executive Committee Lagotla last month, would allow the government to provide practical measures that we need to take to support businesses in the food production, storage, and retail supply chain, including for the rollout of generators, solar panels, and an interrupted power supply. Where technically possible, the government could exempt critical infrastructure such as hospital and water treatment plants from rotational power cuts, and it would allow the limiting of regulatory requirements to speed up adding new energy to the grid. The Auditor General will be brought in to ensure continuous monitoring of expenditure in order to guard against any abuses of the funds needed to attend this disaster, said Ramaphosa in a clear reference to staving off tender and procurement corruption similar to which was merging in the 2-year COVID-19 state of disaster and lockdown. An existential threat. Extraordinary circumstances call for extraordinary measures. The energy crisis is an existential threat to our economy and social fabric. We must spare no effort and we must allow no delay in implementing these measures. It was the State of the Nation address focused on the economy, from electricity to rail, roads and ports, and one in which Ramaphosa discussed specifics including reshaping the COVID-19 bounce-back scheme for small businesses into one to shield them from the rotational power cuts and the 10,000 recruits now damaging Home Affairs records. Much of what was outlined was a continuation of what Ramaphosa's administration had been grappling with, alongside some important notes of the country's deepening poverty and inequality, such as the continuation of the monthly 350 rand COVID-19 grant. Or in the rail transport, where the idea of third-party or private sector access has been in the government in tray for a while. We are working across government to develop a Transnet roadmap that will translate our policy commitment into reality, including the restructuring of Transnet Freight Rail to create a separate infrastructure manager for the rail network by October 2023, said Ramaphosa.